All right, you're live. Yeah, the notification has come. And on LinkedIn, I just need to make sure I mute you don't have echoes. All right, if you've joined us, we're just about to get started. Just giving people about a minute or so to just sign in. Any questions that you need to ask, you can post in the comments on LinkedIn. I'll try and answer them as best as I can, or post the questions to Rajesh more rightly. All right, it's 6 p.m. We'll start. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Naveen Narayanan. I'm one of the partners of Center of Gravity Consulting, and some of you may know us. And for the others, I'm sure as we get into the Q&A session, Rajesh will explain a little bit about Center of Gravity as well. Rajesh is one of the partners at Center of Gravity, like myself, and he's one of the founding partners of the firm and also the CEO. And I've asked him to join us in this Ask Rajesh Anything session. So I have the easier job of asking him questions and sit back and enjoy as he's in the hot seat. The reason for having this and many sessions in future is to help people understand our online school, which we call HumanWorks, the genesis of it, the kind of courses that we offer, whom we have created it for, and frankly, to take as many questions from you, our audience, and other people who are interested in knowing what this is all about, and try and field as many questions that you have in this session and in the ones that follow from here on. So without much ado, I'm going to toss the mic over to Rajesh. And Rajesh, I'm going to just open up directly with a question in the interest of time. We have 30 minutes to try and get as many questions answered. So could you give the audience an explanation of why did we start HumanWorks? What was the real purpose behind it all?
I think, Naveen, to answer the question, I think it may be important to spend a couple of minutes understanding who we are as people and our journey over the last 15 to 17 years approximately. One of the first things that came to my mind as I was kind of preparing for today's conversation was that when we look back at Center of Gravity's origin, we were not set up as a business. We do not have any major financial ambition. That is never the intent of setting up this company. It is so even today, right? This morning, we are all on a call and we're discussing where do you take HumanWorks and go. And the business was the last discussion that we had. How do you make this powerful? How do you make it absolutely valuable to the people who join us? How do you give them the best experience? How do you make them head and shoulders above the rest of the folks that they compete with in the world of business and so on? So business, it is not a business concern at all. The second thing, so therefore, what is it? It can be a professional practice in a manner of speaking, but that's too cold. But I think a good way to give it a name would be something like a skunk works for the craft that we kind of follow. So it's virtually a skunk works for the craft that we practice even today. And so this origin or this motivation that started off center of gravity pretty much kind of follows through even today. Now, as an outcome of this thinking that we are a skunk works for this craft, naturally, we were really innocent. We hope we are today. We hope we're eating a lot of it even today. We are passionate like crazy. We were purists, and many clients have told us that this like, to a fault, you're kind of pushing this a little too far. We're idealistic, and most importantly, we're people of the heart. We just did things because we like doing it, kind of a thing. And above all, we kept chasing learning continuously, and what the world would typically call as huge costs. And by costs, I mean financial costs. There are n number of examples, right? And this kind of behavior is what gave us our comfort of the voice that we have today, and our willingness to kind of start a course which we feel would help a world at large. So when I say things like purists, idealists, people of the heart, what do I mean? There are many stories, and maybe I'll just touch upon 3 or 4 of them, like in a minute or so. I remember the first time, right in our early days, when I called to work by one of India's largest business process outsourcing company for a visioning project. I remember making a proposal with one of my colleagues saying that we've done 40 such projects and none of them have worked. And we hope that what we do for you will work out. And we got the project. It looks bizarre, but that was our pitch, saying that nothing that we've done has worked. I remember a large company, one of India's largest brands, asked us to do work on something in the home-related area, and because there are no budgets, we paid from our own pockets for the research, part of the research. That's ridiculous now in retrospect, but we did that at that point in time. The second project I think that we did, we were asked to go to some 8 villages to do a strategy for a rural client, and we went to 52 villages or something like that. We were just there for 6 months. Because we just wanted to do it. There's no other reason. A microfinance study that we did at the bottom of the pyramid, a massive study of nearly 2,500, 3,000 people did purely at our cost because we are keen to learn. We wanted to know more. We wanted our solutions to be as beautiful and rich and textured as possible. And there are many such examples, the Indigo film, the Savile Row film, and more recently, a 2.5-year project on design for a client in the luxury business, when during that same period of time, we could have kind of churned out 5 strategy projects and made 5 times the money. So we've always taken the calls that are learning calls. And therefore, in a manner of speaking, and not just that, I know at various points in our life, there have been private equity firms who have come and asked us to do projects in 15 days, 20 days, and we have flatly refused. We always told them that this takes 2 to 3 months. It is soft time work. There's a process of engaging with it deeply. The solutions have to work in the long term. This is not fast food. It's not French fries and burgers. And so because we've taken that call over and over again, what we have today is not a manicured frangipani that you see in apartment walkways or a nursery. What we have is a tree or a forest, or a tree is a better metaphor. It has its pith, that is, a few of us having worked for 15 years across 250, 300 odd projects. It's got slowly matured over time and experience. It has got its layers and nuances and shades and textures and colors. It has gone through multiple experiences. We had scallops and knots like a tree has had. Part of us have rotted away and fallen, but a lot of it has actually started to bear fruit, and it's looking beautiful. And it's no wonder that the identity, the visual identity of HumanWorks is inspired by the tree, the pith of the tree, the rings that you see, the concentric rings that you see once you look at the cross section. So it's virtually like a tree or a forest in many ways. And we have always done this work, actually. What we're doing today as an online course, and I wouldn't call it an online course because I think it's unfair to the course that we're trying to do. But this online effort, which is HumanWorks, where we're trying to distill the principles of human-centered strategy and bring it to the world, in a manner of speaking, we started doing this actively about 4 to 5 years back. We have run these training sessions with Soda School of Business in Vancouver, with ICS Hitotsubashi out of Tokyo. Every year they come down to India for the last 4 to 5 years. We've done sessions with the Swiss CEO Forum, with NID, run symposium at the Yale School of Management. We've done programs like the Exchange, which is a coalition of 5 companies, middle and senior managers from Bosch, 3M, Titan, Asian Paints, and so on. So we've done this all along, but now we're actually kind of pulling all these principles, distilling them down, and doing it in a more structured manner so that a larger part of the world can access this experience and hopefully kind of benefit greatly from it. So in many ways, I think this value system with which you open Center of Gravity is pretty much the reason why we have this course. That is that we are not a business house. We are a professional practice in a crude sense of term, but we are actually a skunk works for this craft. And over the period of 15 years, we have evolved a philosophy, which is a unique philosophy, which now we know doesn't exist anywhere. It's not to be conflated with similar sounding terms, but the idea of human-centered thinking and the fact that it works in virtually every single project that you've done is a testimony to that, is now being opened out. And the proof of this always has been the fact that we have worked with these companies across sectors, across 6 countries, across senior leadership with CEOs and 1 or 2 levels below. All of this means that it is hopefully powerful work that we can uncover to the rest of the world.
So, Rajesh, if I summarize that, thank you for saying that. If I can summarize that, I understand to those who don't know Center of Gravity, we may be known for depth in strategy consulting, but not just that. We have a unique philosophy that you articulated as human-centered and a proven methodology for practicing that philosophy that has been proven time and again. And surely there are a lot of clients and organizations and academics across the world who will recognize us that we have created it and we are good at it. But I'm coming back to the original question a little bit. Why teach? Why teach? I mean, you could practice. What is the reason for that?
I mean, bulk of us, virtually all of us nowadays, we go through business schools. we learn whatever we learn in business schools. Doesn't matter if it is an Ivy League school or doesn't matter if it's a school in the boondocks of any of our city, smaller towns. It's the same stuff. It's more refined in a manner of speaking at best. We go through business schools and then we jump into the world of professional practice or work. And there is always a gap. There is a gap which kind of shows up very, very quickly in the first 1 or 2 years of working. Because as we join workplaces, what we are put through is an induction, very often a 2-day or a 3-day induction, maybe a 7-day induction. But what we are inducted into as employees of a company are essentially the products and services of the company. It's the company's way to get you to land running, to kind of start to work immediately and contribute. It is not necessarily meant to make you into future leaders and give you a method by which you can take strategic decisions. And so that journey starts. So you jump from academics into work, you've been inducted, and then you start your work. In the first few years, you learn the process of doing something. Maybe the first year or 2, you learn the process. You become good at it. But very, very quickly, you are thrown into the world of taking decisions. And decisions start off as small, less important decisions, very important to the person taking it. But eventually, they start to become more and more important, more and more significant, more and more valuable, and more risky in the context of an organization. Now, as the world of business kind of start to unravel itself in today's times, it is a wicked environment. It's no longer a kind environment, like David Epstein tells in the book Range, if I'm not mistaken. There are too many things changing. I mean, the standard VUC and all these kind of terms that go around in circles in our life nowadays. But essentially, things are too fluid and too volatile and too kind of chaotic and so on. So process will only help you that far and no further. Essentially, what you need is a framework or a philosophy, a set of principles by which you can take decisions. And that means that somebody has to train you in that. Now, organizations are not equipped to do that because it is category specific. You're kind of running to kind of ensure that the sales and the revenues and whatever goals that you have in the context of the category works out. But business decisions have more fundamental underlying principles involved. And the principles that we stand for are human centered. They are not fad. They are classical in the sense of the term, which is why I told earlier on that we never agree to this 10-day, 15-day fast food nonsense. It takes 3 months. And if you don't have the time, don't do it. We are better off not working with you, and you're better off not working with us. That's the way it is. So when people start to take decisions, they are kind of left orphaned or handicapped. And of course, younger people are looking up to these guys to actually guide them through. And there's this very, very uneasy period that people go through once they start to take decisions. Hopefully, a powerful lens that helps you integrate multiple touch points of organization, multiple vectors or dimensions of the business, the mega trends, the consumer angle, the competitive context, your own company, all of this, how do you pull it all together into a story that works powerfully for a business and brand, needs integrating thought. In our case, the integrating thought is human-centered thinking, which is what we come to evolve over 15 years, 200-odd projects, 6 countries, and so on and so forth. And if people did go through this gap can be bridged between academics and profession. Importantly, your ability to take decisions and help the business be successful, both in the interest of the business and your own interest in terms of career, would get hugely propped up. Not to mention the general respect and self-esteem that comes from knowing something powerfully. And the question is always asked us, right? Is it more important to have a great degree from a great college? Because a great degree from a great college obviously gives you an entry into this world. You're known as the person with that kind of credentials. You have networks and social capital. But like with everything, when you go to war, the flags and the banners and the flashing of your costumes only take you that far. Eventually, you'll take a sword and go to fight. And if you don't have a sharp enough sword, you will get cut to pieces. So whether somebody wants to have a display banner and a coat of arms, that is their choice. But we always wish and we kind of argue for the fact that he made sharp enough swords and armors and guns and so on. And I don't want to use a violent metaphor, but yeah, I think this is how we come to the party. This is what we feel strong.
Wonderful. Now, and I guess I'm just scrolling through any comments that people have asked questions. Pawan wanted to join this call, and I think he couldn't join, so he kind of sent his questions to Sarika from our team, and she's posted it. I'm just trying to read through some of these so that this is an interesting one. I would have brought it up anyway. It ties into this anxiety I felt when I was talking about HumanWorks to other people and in what context they view, I guess, supplementary education or even online education in that context. And I'll just read out the question. I think it will make itself clear. And he says, we keep hearing about the next big thing and get swayed by it. Some people say data sciences will be big, and we see many people do a course in data science without knowing what it is about. How do we go about choosing a course that will enhance our careers instead of just going with trends?
Let me just kind of ramble through the answer, and you can pitch in, Navin, as well.
Yeah.
Clearly, like I told, once you let go of the world of academics and move to work, and then you start to find this gap between your responsibilities and your skill, then the pressure starts to build at some point in time. One way to kind of alleviate this pressure or to take address this pressure is to take a sabbatical and go back to academics. And many people do that now. And you're seeing increasing number of people doing that. The other way to address this is actually to take this rash of courses that are there all over the place. They're all like hacks, right? 2 things to learn, 3 books to read, 5 ways to fall in love kind of nonsense. We don't come from that world at all. At the cost of sounding arrogant, we look down upon that world also. So you have these 2 things. And then what are taught in many of these courses are bits and pieces of the puzzle. Data science, digital marketing, customer centricity, research, pieces. And then there is nothing to integrate all of this, because as you start to go through the organization, if there is a framework or a lens by which you can integrate all of this, That's a very powerful situation to be in, because you'll always find people with different craft skills. New craft skills will come into vogue after a few years. Data science will be replaced by something else, God knows what. And Instagram will give it to something else, God knows what. What you need is a powerful philosophical framework, which is classical in the true sense of the term, because it stands the test of time, through which you can integrate any damn thing that comes in the future or stands for even today. And that worldview is important, because if you had that, you would be then able to not, you would not get anxious with, oh, somebody is learning blockchain, somebody else is learning performance marketing, somebody else is learning something else, and you're kind of caught in this absolute chaos of where do you go and kind of invest yourself. So this, in many ways, actually is an integrative thinking. It's a context-based thinking. It's based on philosophy and principles. And once you have a sense of it, it is essentially a pathway to leadership-related roles and not craft-based roles. There are, I'm sure, a lot of courses that make sense to craft skills, individual craft skills, which are pieces of the puzzle. This is an integrative thinking kind of an approach. This is a way to see all the dots. A lot of clients tell this to us very often, that how do you connect the dots? How do you see the patterns? This is a way to see the patterns. This is a way to kind of understand the context and the content. This is a way to kind of see the dots. So it is analysis and synthesis brought together. Once you have this kind of integrative thinking, if that's the right word, then this anxiety that comes from watching thousands of courses going all over the place and not sure what to pick and choose, and by the time you pick up something that is no longer the happening thing, and then you have to kind of do the next thing, and it's frenzied, but it's not, you're no longer in a better place than what you were at the start. You just have got some language around it, but it doesn't really help you in the long run. If you are planning to be in a leadership position, either in the mid management or in the senior levels, and the journey to that starts well before you enter that stage, right? So I think, I'm sure we ourselves have taken some of these courses. We ourselves have thought of this from time to time, but actually, when you step back and think, you need an integrative thinking, you need a context-based thinking, which is grounded in philosophy.
And I recall at some point when some of the genesis of some of our courses, we used to talk internally about saying, we wish these were the courses that were available to us to actually train our own people. And you find out there's nothing out there. You have to create it yourself. It really doesn't exist out there. I'm just going through Pawan's questions quickly just to make sure that I've answered. I think the last question, I think, is related to your answer. Pawan has asked, why do people get stuck in their careers, and can courses like these help them? I think that's the crux of what you were talking about. Here is an interesting side angle to it, which I think you should reflect and talk about, which is, he says, people put up their education degrees as a badge of honor. But in the past few years, there have been this huge proliferation of courses like Center of Gravity, which look at upskilling differently. I'm not a big fan of the term upskilling, but I get what he's trying to say, I think. Should you do a course so that it looks good on your CV or your biodata, or because you want to get better at something? That's philosophically how. Well, I guess I'll dovetail onto that and say, if there is an ideal student you're looking at for HumanWorks, what is that pen picture? What is required of that person?
So this course, the Human-Centered Masterclass course, or any of the allied courses that kind of surround this course, are essentially only for people who want to engage with the subject deeply. It is not for people who are seeking out hacks or shortcuts or a quick course that I can add on to the LinkedIn biodata at the end and so on. It's not for that. It doesn't work. It is in your best interest and in our best interest that you don't take the course if that's your view, because we are planning to invest a lot of our emotional energy into this as well. And so, therefore, if you're really ready to go through the grind, and it will be a grind, then you should take the course. As regards the earlier discussion, the earlier part of the question, which I think I partially answered, which is that you can go to the battle with your coat of arms and your shiny banners and your whatever stuff, the bells and whistles that you can carry into battle with. But eventually you need the substance that runs behind it. And this is the
substance. So I'm just trying to poke at the metaphor so that for those who are not understanding it, are you referring to the degrees from premier institutions that adorn the walls? Is that what you mean by?
You wouldn't really kind of even belittle that. I'm sure there's value in all of that. We are that in part of many educational institutions, and there's value to all of that. But this is a practitioner's worldview. A practitioner's value that comes, like I told, it is 50 to 60 circles in the pith of the tree. 250 projects, God knows how many categories, God knows what life stage of organizations, starting from startups right down to really, really mature organizations, 5, 6 countries. It's happened through, and it's happened on the back of a philosophy where learning was the only kind of output that we sought. It was not a financial engine. This is not a business house. This is just done for, we do it even today, like I mentioned. So in that, given that context, the value that comes from engaging people who are practicing even today and will continue to practice even in the future, and practice not from the point of view of doing cut-based consulting, but virtually every single project is done as new. It is exhausting, but it's equally powerful and exciting for us. We just do 7 or 8 projects a year, and it's given its full treatment, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 2.5 years, and that's ridiculous to even mention, but we've gone down to even 2.5 years. So something that comes from that level of intensity and maturation has to have a value that goes beyond frameworks, which very often are actually abstracted from practical worlds. It doesn't come out of thin air, right? So when something goes into academics, the theory is on the back of practice established by people outside in the real life. So we are that port, and hopefully when people come to us, they'll get a glimpse of it. And that's the effort in this entire. So if you then look at it, like there's a core course which is Human Centered Strategy Masterclass. There's a set of allied courses around it, like listening, which is so critical to the world of human-centered strategy. All of our work has been because over years, thousands of hours of listening were done, and we have personally gone. This is not a kind of a hive of operation. We have personally been to thousands and thousands of homes, listening to God knows how many thousand hours of conversation, learning how to listen deeply, learning to let go of our status and control, listening with our body entirely. So be it listening or empathy or storytelling or metaphors or design philosophy, there's or how to arrive at a vision. There's a allied set of courses that sit around the human-centered master strategy class, all based purely on 15 to 17 years of practitioners' work. And that's the central value, I guess, which has worked. So therefore, we are comfortable telling that it works without doubt.
I am just looking. Sneha has asked, can one connect or reach out to the COG team to deep dive points of discussions based on the course? Is there a forum for discussions? So I'll take this question. Sneha, to each course, there is obviously pre-recorded content that you consume, and while you're consuming this content in that space, contextually at that point in time, there is a discussion forum embedded in each of the content you consume. So if you're in, let's say, argument's sake, you're in lesson 1.3, as you're consuming it, you have a thought that occurs to you. Right there, you can pose your question in the forum and get responses back both from your instructor and from other people from Center of Gravity, as and when that input is sought by that instructor. That is embedded into the nature of the course itself. Not only that, every course comes with it the opportunity to interact periodically. In the case of Human Centered Strategy Masterclass, that's once a week with your instructor for at least 1 hour, where everybody comes together and discusses what they have learned in the week, so that any pending doubts, clarifications, concerns can be addressed. Like Rajesh mentioned, our entire goal for this is not to think like a business, but to say that whatever we have learned, whatever we have codified, that we know doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, we want to instill this philosophy and confidence in being able to practice it in every student that we encounter. That's really the mission. It's not seen through the lens of business and scale. We want students who would, I guess, Rajesh, we've talked about this internally when we look for potential hires, etc. We'd always say to have an apprentice mindset. It's a calling, and you want to go down this path because we believe you will find it enjoyable. And there is an ocean to immerse yourself and learn from and share with each other. So to your question, we are biologically engineered for discussion. So discussion will be part of every course. I don't think there is any going away from it. That's the nature of the work itself.
I
I
mean,
hope that answers your question.
like you mentioned some time back that it has to push you, right? Otherwise, there's no learning. This is not. I have made all the mistakes, so you don't have to make any more. I have burned the midnight oil, so you can sleep in peace, kind of course. I think you should not sleep in peace, or I think you should not sleep in peace. Both some value for somebody. So we hope to be that. And anything that is preserved in us, it is still a great degree of innocence and passion and doing things with the heart. Right down to this call today morning when we're discussing what we do with HumanWorks. That's never been a question of mine. We are like now being told biologically engineered to be that way.
All right, we are coming to, I think it's about, we have 2 minutes left in the conversation. I don't think there's any other questions. I do want to remind people that all human-centered strategy masterclass, of course, that is the foundational work. If you're interested in this, it is designed to be a course where you go in a batch. So every student gets their content every week, and they go together so that you're actually trying to solve a real problem and you learn by solving it. Uh, to ensure that the batches start at a certain period of time, one batch is currently underway, and we are about, I would say, about 60 to 70% of that batch is done. Our next batch actually opens on May 1st. So if you are interested, do check out the course in our school page and ask questions. Post it on our LinkedIn page, and we'll always check and respond to any questions you want. If you want further clarification sessions like these, we do that. Some of the other courses are evergreen. You can take them at any point in time. But even in the evergreen courses, you have periodic interactions with your instructor. It is designed in that manner. To going back to Sneha's question, it's not, learning is not just you watch a set of videos and therefore learning happens. The videos is maybe you watch 1 hour of video and then you do some additional reading. What you really need to do in each and every one of our courses is take the time to reflect, think, and put down your thoughts. It's not a hack like anything else that Rajesh says. We are interested in instilling the philosophy and making ourselves actually learn how to think in so many ways along the human-centered method of doing things. All right, it's 6:30 p.m. This may be one of the rare occasions where we, took the time to make sure we start and finish on time. I didn't want to demand too much of your time on a Monday, especially when CSK is going to go out and bat, and yay. We can do more of these sessions if they help, and we will be doing much more of these Ask Me Anythings designed around some of the other courses. But this one was more to introduce people to the philosophy and the overarching belief system of HumanWorks itself. Right now, there are 5 courses that are live. Our plan is to create many more things. Some of the things that Rajesh mentioned around metaphors and empathy and community building and design philosophies, all in the works. Our game plan is really, and I'm not joking, there is a method to create nearly as many as 30 different allied courses in the human-centered discipline itself over the next couple of years. So there is a lot to explore in this world. But I think our foundational course of Human-Centered Strategy Masterclass is what I think anybody interested in deep learning in this field should really start with. I mean, if you are game for it. And you will see, even when you go to our website and look at our narrative, it'll reflect some of the challenges you're putting in front of a student. With that said, any final words, Rajesh?
I think, I just thinking back to a conversation this morning, and the fact that we can tell at this point in time that we are happy with 100, 200 students, we are scared of 5,000 students, is the way we are approaching this. We're not going to go nuts, kind of doing this cookie cutter, cut paste kind of stuff. So, and if Navin told, if you're really up for it and we can go through the midnight oil stuff, we'll push you through it, and then let's see what comes out of it. We feel there's huge value because we've done it for 15, 20 years. But yeah, if you're up for it, we'll be happy to have you around and go on this journey along with you.
All right. Thank you all for joining. Have a good rest of the week and stay safe out there, please. Uh, Things are hopefully will look better in the second half of the year for all of us. Yeah. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.